So like you were talking about the myths of Africa, and you were kind of championing um, the correct, I guess, information to go out, the misconceptions, right, that you wanted to sort of debunk. I
Hmm.
know I hear a lot of them in my daily life. I think that's why I was so grateful for my trip to South Africa, to be able to kind of understand the differences and understand some of the culture. Like we were able to um, some of the trips people take are very watered down. This one wasn't. Like the company that uh, basically booked the trip for us. So I went with my grandparents. They have this deal, I guess, with people that live in some of these communities that um, the company can show the tourists how they live. They welcome them into their homes. Like we went into somebody's home for a dinner, ate with a family, and they had everybody in the group eat with a different family. So we got to go experience this sort of culture. And even just throughout South Africa, you notice how it differs from region to region within its own country. So um, after that experience, it kind of irked me when I hear people be like, "Oh, Africa is this." I'm like, well, no, it's not, because Cote d'Ivoire is different from Egypt. It's different from South Africa. It's different
Hmm.
from, like, even just in Burundi and Rwanda. There's two totally different tribes there. Um, and so, do you want to go into kind of what's the sort of work you were doing and some examples, some stories, maybe?
Yeah. So one thing that people, often get wrong is like they refer to Africa as as if it's like one country or one whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When Africa is 54 countries. So say Africa as a whole continent, and like you mentioned before, Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, all completely different. And even within each country, there are so many tribes. For example, Ethiopia alone has a little over 80 tribes
Mm-hmm.
in just one country. So it is very diverse and very different. So that's really one that kind of irritates me a little bit. The other one is really people see Africa as as poor as in refugee camps. I mean, yeah, there is that, but also there's also that a little bit. The poor is everywhere you go, even in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But with Africa, there is the poorest of the poor, or there, but there's also some very well off rich people. For example, you
Definitely.
go to Nigeria, they have some oil man, they have different things. And it's not that you see it's all poor and all those kind of things. Well, it is, but also it depends on where you go.
Mm-hmm.
There are different regions, or different regions that are very developed or even technologically advanced. So um, that's kind of one thing. Kind of like, we're so poor. Like, no, it depends where you go. Just like when you say the United States, yeah, they're well off, but then again, it depends
Yeah.
on which neighborhoods you're in.
Right.
So it's really
Exactly.
everywhere. Another one I would say, when people say, do you have a pet lion or a pet giraffe? I'm like, you have a pet lion, you have a pet giraffe? No, I don't. It sounds silly because I don't. This is not like, yeah, this is not some movie where I have a pet lion just laying in my backyard. Like, no,
Has
I,
somebody asked you that before?
um, jokingly, I've heard a few. Yeah, I've heard, a pet lion, or even I want to get the click that I'm like,
Oh,
whoa, 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 whoa.
yeah.
I mean, imagine the 54 countries. Let's say in Ethiopia, there is 80 tribes. Those
Yeah.
80 tribes probably speak a different language. So with that respect, think about a whole 54 countries. So I've heard that one. And to those that do the joke, if you're
Mhm.
listening, um, that's actually a language. That's a language in South Africa. That's Xhosa. That's in South Africa.
Yeah,
And
I
that
heard
is
it. I heard it spoken when I was there.
Yeah, of course you have. Yeah, it's spoken there, but that's South Africa, and that's a specific tribe. I speak Kirundi. I speak Swahili.
Mm.
They speak French. They speak Portuguese. Um, so they speak Arabic. There's just so many languages that
Yeah.
are
Even in South Africa alone, there's Afrikaans. They speak Dutch, English.
Afrikaans.
The
Hmm.
language that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
It's like I heard, I think, 8 different languages in the space of like 3 weeks when I was there.
Yeah.
8 or 9 different languages. And to your point about people being poor or well off, you see that in Johannesburg as well.
Hmm.
It's really stark. You go from Soccer City, where the World Cup final was played in
Yeah.
Johannesburg, and there's like a big banking center in downtown, and then you go 5 blocks away, and people are living in like tinfoil huts without roofs,
Hmm.
and it's totally different.
Yeah, like I said, so that's something that I was really just trying to push. And I think people should see Africa in a different light. Um, they're all smart and you know, they're smart individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Some dumb people, but it's everywhere. Like I said, so it's not really Africa is not as different as you may think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of things that you have in the United States, you have them there. But the whole continent, speaking of the whole continent, just very it's very, like I would say, it's like they're they're poor. When I mean poor, like there was the poor of the poor,
Right.
and then there's the opposite also.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's fair to mention that.
Yeah, to your point about it not being that different, it's like, yeah, culturally it's a little bit different, but
Yeah, that
when I
was
was
it.
there and we got to walk in the street, I would just talk to random people and the ones that spoke English anyways, and they weren't that different at the end of the day. I would just like I was in a bar there with like two of the guys that were traveling with us, and we were just talking to like some of the locals about soccer and just life in general. And it's not so different, to be honest, because at the end of the day, right, like we're all human, we all like different things. So like some of the different areas, like we went into a Zulu village, and they're still living how, like in the tribal sense, with like tents and like the loincloths and like that sort of thing. There's a picture on my Instagram.
Mhm.
The Zulu tribesman has my Nike hat on, and
Uh-huh.
he gives me his hat, and we switched,
Yeah, that's neat.
took
That's neat.
took the picture. But like I talk to them too, and it's like, even though you would think as far away as lifestyles that is, you could still have a conversation with them. Um, and it was really cool. It was a really good experience. And so again, like for me to come talk to you and to hear that sort of stuff, I think is good for the like people to know. It makes you more well rounded to experience different cultures. That's why, like in our friend group at UMW, I was really like, you and Yoel and Carlos and that whole group. I'd hear like four languages spoken a day, and it was really good. It was
Yeah.
really like I learned a ton from you guys. Just about different cultures and stuff. So, um, what sort of platforms did you have to kind of do this, to kind of do the work that you're talking about?
So one platform that I had, I co-founded a community organization, in Fredericksburg here, where I kind of help Burundian individuals kind of see what life is like after high school. So
Mm-hmm.
with that organization, we would often perform IMW at events, whether it was multicultural fair or other events led by the James Farmer Multicultural Center. So
Mm-hmm.
we would often sing in our native language, or sing and dance, and we would wear our culture, like our clothes. So that was kind of show off, showcase, like, there is the Africa that you see on television,
Right.
and that part. There's some parts that are there, but it's also the Africa that you don't see on television, which is, the diverse, the culture, and the beauty. You can tell an African by what they wear.
Mm-hmm.
There was just so many patterns, so many colors, there's just um, so many things that comes with being African, that we are all so different. So that's one part from I used, and also in my role as an RA, I make sure to really educate individuals, whether it was my bulletin boards or whenever I had meetings. I make sure, like, hey, this is how it is, and this is, let me educate you a little bit about Africa. Let me tell you about how many languages are spoken there. Let me tell you about how many countries are there. So those kind of platforms I would use, and I would often partner up with African Student Union,
Mm-hmm.
Res Life, or even the JFMC, the Multicultural Center, to form programs that were kind of debugging those issues. And in terms of my other works that I did on that kind of platform, is I often help programs that would kind of educate first generation students on how to really navigate UMW. So how to do it in a social sense, financial sense,
Mm-hmm.
or even academic sense. How can you prosper here at this university, even though you are a minority? So
Mm-hmm.
I worked a lot with the University Multicultural Center to really form programs that were beneficial to those students, and making sure that I was a resource where students felt comfortable talking to me about issues that may be facing, and that they felt like they had a home, in a sense, at UMW, where they could express their feelings and just have fun and get to be them.
Sure. Yeah. I think especially in like we when I was talking to another one of our friends, Wayne,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it's he mentioned that like becoming friends with like me and you and other people helped him. Because he was first generation as well. He came from Vietnam. We'll try and get him on the podcast at some point. But he the people that were around make such a big impact on the first generation people that are there, because they don't, what am I trying to say, we bring in, or we try to anyways, bring an environment where you can ask a question about, hey, I heard somebody say this thing, what does it mean, like what does the slang term mean, or like help them along socially, in a way that they wouldn't get otherwise. And being in, I think the club soccer team, I think we did a really good job of that. I don't know if you agree or not, but I think we did a really good job of that, because we had a lot of first generation students that played with us,
Yeah.
and to have that group, and even some of the exchange guys, like you remember Michael from
Yeah, I
Germany.
remember Michael.
Yeah, so like we had a very diverse group, and it was really welcoming. And I think, um, I can't speak for everybody, but I think the people that have talked to me were like, yeah, that was really helpful to have that group kind of welcome me and show me how to kind of navigate UMW from a social perspective. Obviously, we didn't really talk about the finances within the soccer team, but
Yeah.
for you to set up a group, like a group or a foundation to do that, is really really helpful. I think it, the work that that would entail, um, it people take it beyond just UMW, you know. um, like I haven't seen Wayne in a while, but they take it beyond, right? It's like the transition, helping that transition become easier helps them go forward in life, like even just past university, helps them with jobs. Remember, like, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but
No, no, I mean, you're something. Yeah.
basically what I'm trying to say is like that's really great work. I think the impact that makes on people will go way beyond just university itself, and into the job market, and into life in general. And it helps people become more well-rounded, right? They get, which I think is really important, especially now. Um, Everyone is kind of, right. America's the melting pot of all sorts of different people. The more different types of people you get exposed to, the more understanding you'll be, the more empathetic you'll be of different people's, um, decisions, why they think the way they do, their experiences, where they came from, why they don't know this American cultural thing that
Mm-hmm.
you you would think you just know. I've noticed that with myself. I'll meet people who, maybe don't pick up a certain social cue or something like that, and it's made me way more understanding, because I'm like, well, they might not have just known, they might be first generation, they might be this or that. And when I see other people who don't have that same level of understanding, and they get upset, like, oh, this person missed this social cue or whatever, I'm like, no, you don't know what they went through to get
Yeah.
here. And so I think it's really important, uh, for that sort of work to be done within the foundation, like you're doing, but with outside of it as well, like in the soccer team or in just friend groups, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
No, I think you got a good point there. So, in terms of like, let's say like slangs or things that, or I guess cultural relevant in the United States. For example, sarcasm. I didn't pick that up until I don't even know ninth grade. Just
Yeah.
because like I would take it seriously. I'm kind of like, oh, they don't actually want me to jump off the bridge. Ah, okay, let me go ahead and not jump off a bridge.
Yeah.
Um, or like slang, because
Mm-hmm.
with slang, if you haven't been here long enough, or if you're not like hip, I guess you're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna know my thing. So it took me a while to be hip and know like what this means. Like for me, let's just say um, the word bet, like oh bet.
Mm-hmm.
I think of like, oh, what am I betting on? But when this means like, oh, we're like, it's cool, like it's whatever. So it's those kind of things that may seem simple when talking to somebody who is your age in the United States, but when you come from a different culture, it's not simple because you're just, again, you're trying to learn what that word actually means, and then it can be used so differently. So kind of like, okay, does this mean, what does it mean? What does it mean here? Are they joking? Are they being sarcastic? It's a whole, like, it's a whole different thing that you won't think about it unless you were in, I guess, a foreigner's shoes, if you will.
Yeah. And it made me have to think about it because I would have people text me. Like, I remember, like I was at the UC with some of our teammates, and somebody said, "Oh, like, hey, I'll see you later." And somebody was like, "Oh, bet." And we walked away, and Wayne was like, "What does that mean?" And I remember, like, I was already kind of aware, but as that kept happening, I was like, it made me super aware of the fact that not everybody picks up on that stuff, and not everybody knows if they're not familiar with the culture. And so to be able to be that person for somebody like Wayne or you or whoever, to, like, somebody texts me and like, "Hey, what does this mean?" Like, I don't know. It gives a new perspective. Another one of my teammates was on, he was on Tinder, and a girl messaged him something, and he sent me a screenshot. He's like, "I don't know what this means." And I was like, "Huh, I don't actually either. Let me look it up on Urban Dictionary." I was like, "Let me look it up on Urban Dictionary, and I'll tell you." But it just goes to show, like, it's to be understanding of a person that doesn't know, like, because kids can be mean, man, especially in
Yeah,
middle
like,
school and high school. Like, if you don't know what something means, they're like, "Ha ha, you don't know what that means." Like, to be able to be that person that's like, "Here, come here,
yeah,
I'll tell you what it means," and then you can know. It's like, it's a weird part of life, I guess.
yeah. And I was
But
fortunate. I was fortunate to have people around me that were, that would, like, I'm like, hey, because for me, I asked a lot of questions because I'm like, if I don't know, I'm gonna ask questions.
mm-hmm,
So I would, like, wait whenever the thing they went past and be like, hey, what did they mean by that? What does this mean? How do you
mm-hmm.
do this? Just because, like, you honestly don't know, and people are not really the most patient when explaining things, so
Yeah, exactly.
it's a bit difficult with that.
Yeah, no, it's really good that you ask, though, because I know people that
Mhm.
won't ask either.
Yeah,
Um, and so it's good. So for anyone listening who finds themselves in a situation like this, either on the side that you don't know or the side that somebody's asking you,
hmm,
one, ask the question for sure, because you're gonna find people like you or like me or whoever who's more than willing to answer the question.
hmm,
And then if you're on the other side, be patient with them. Like, people don't know culture is a very strange thing to
hmm,
become accustomed to. If you haven't gone and visited other places, you don't know all the things that you take for granted that you just do, that somebody else might not know because they didn't grow up in the same culture. So be patient, man. I think we need more of that in general in
yeah,
society. Patience,
I
right?
agree.
People understanding that people come from different places, and
Hmm.
which is, I always get back to this, but that's one of the points of the podcast, right? It's like
Hmm.
learning that people come from different places and have different experiences, and then wanting to share those with people.